Hey y'all, let's talk about some trucks, amp chassis, flamethrower chassis, and turn in an extraction chassis that has the tabs on it, which most of the pit kit ones do and some of the cars you get do. Adding light bulbs of different types of light bulbs and why I recommend certain ones. They're the ones I've been most successful with. But and I did this modification to the Gold Rush trucks. I swapped out, I had to change the back wheels too because they had like yellow wheels on there or red ones on one set had red and the other one had yellow. But the yellow wheels are on, that's from the yellow truck amp chassis. And I'll talk about that one here in a minute. But so I just took a rear axle and then pressed on some extraction rear wheel hubs to marry that up. Now on these, they're silver already, so you don't really need to bother with it, although they're a different style of wheel. So it's up to how much attention to detail you want to put in and changing them out. I may or may not, I don't know. But at any rate, what I found on this Peterbilt chassis was a factory made, this is a factory made extraction flamethrower chassis. And it would not fit because every time I tried to put the body on, these upper portion of the wires were binding with something on the underside of the subframe. Not a lot of clearance in there. And the way the amp chassis are, they got these wires like that, and the can motor profile is different, so it can lay right down in that center channel. And on your extraction, you see how they're bowed around on the flamethrower. This is a factory flamethrower. It came off of one of the GT40s, or the Ford GTs that I'd bought from Love's, the one with black wheels. But I put it under, I just got it in my spare box right now. But that one has a amp chassis lighted under it now. And so the chassis I did do, I had to solder a bulb on. Here it is. But also I just want to mention, if you look at, well, that one's not bad. Yeah, that side's kind of not good. I'm going to point at it with a screwdriver. But if you look at that junction in there where the wire pinches, there's a little groove that you just snap the wire in. Well, they heated it up with an iron to do a little plastic melt to keep the wire from popping out there. And went a little deep. This one still works, but if you're going to do that, be very careful with your heat. I would just put a drop of super glue there or something, or E6000 or plastic model cement, something that would be, if you wanted to cut that off, easy to take it out. Because if you had to replace this bulb, you'd have to cut that loose. And they weren't as aggressive with the heat on this side, but they did, you can see that they just touch the tip of the iron to melt that plastic. And if you're going to do that, you're going to do it after you solder for sure, because that's going to dirty up your tip on your soldering iron, and you need to keep it clean and dip it in the flux every time when you're tending the wire and when you're soldering it on. So I might do a video demonstrating that. But so that's a factory one, and it won't fit under this Peterbilt body. It may fit under the cab over, but it's got the wrong color wheels on it for this that I want. So I'm not even going to try it in there. But the Heartland Hauler, this is the same subframe on the Peterbilt, even though this one's a dump truck. But if you take that back part off, the only thing different is it doesn't have this extra box in the back, and it will have a fifth wheel hitch. I guess that's what you call it, whatever. But so that being said, the one that I did do, now you're not going to be able to see it very well because it's a black bulb, black wires. It's a replacement bulb I got from Slot Car Central. But what I did, I soldered it on the, you can see on the lower tab there where the solder is. And then the wire, but what I did, I shoved it through the hinge point. I don't know if you're not going to be able to see it where the wire is coming out, but through the hinge point where the armature hooks in to the chassis, there's a void there. There's a little bit of enough room that you can shove that wire through there from the front, shove it through, solder the wire, push it in, pull it over, and then flip it over and do the other side. You got to shove the wire in through the empty void so that what your wire looks like then, it's just coming, it's just fed in between the two armature arms. And I gave it a little twist. Don't twist it too much. You can put a drop of glue on there, and then it's only just pointing forward. And it will fit under, I had it under this one, and I'll put it back on there and demonstrate. So just make sure your bolt's going forward because of the orientation of the socket, which is right there. That's the socket that the bulb goes into. So I'll put that in there. Line up the side clip. Which may take a moment. These trucks, bodies are really tight too, so you don't want to be putting the bodies on and off a lot. There we go, that's in one side, and it's snapped in. All right, so now it's snapped in. They're real tight when you're taking them out too, so be very, very careful because that plastic, the side part of that is real stiff. I don't know how much it would take to break one. I haven't done it yet, but it's not like you're dealing with 40-year-old plastic. But if you try to wedge something in there, it won't be good. So that's put back together. And you see it lights up. So that's the one that I fed the tiny wires in through. So you see where those red wires are. The only difference is my wire is under that hook on both sides, and it's a pain to fish it through there. But like I said, this is how they do it at the factory. I haven't opened a factory lit truck yet, but they don't have to worry about it on the amp chassis because it's all running straight down the middle. Also, if you haven't taken them out of the package yet, be real careful. I felt like they're in there really, really tight. And I felt like I was about to pull, I didn't want to, on that cab over, they got them stacks sticking way up. if you snag one of those in there, it'll come off pretty easy, I would imagine. But they're probably, I think they're taller than those. I don't know. Maybe not. This just protrudes a little higher. And then I took the amp chassis off, which again, they're in there really tight. And as soon as I took them out, because the point of weakness I see on an amp chassis is that stiff arm on the capacitor going from one of the pickups to that little bitty circuit board. The printed circuit board material on that board itself, the foil is really thin. So what I do, I modify them. I get rid of that board, and then the wires just go from the front board, which you got to be careful. You don't want to heat up those front wires either, because if you ruin that, then you won't have good conduct to the motor leads. But basically, the two front pickup solder wires go straight to the motor, and then this light bulb, I just paralleled it off, and it works fine that way. You can see it if I got it. And that's with the factory red bulb that's on the amp chassis. So this one is the one that I converted to put on the Tergal F4 GT, because those amp chassis are way too sparky for the trucks. So I figured a low profile race car would be a good thing to put it under. And so there you go. It would have been better if I did not pay attention to the, even though this is a low profile body, it seems to be more flexible and less pissed off when I'm trying to put the chassis under it. And that bulb, that light socket in there is real wide, so it'll be to one side or the other, but make sure it's a real wide bezel in there. A little better. So that's a good use for the amp chassis when you move it. A nice race car. And then, like I said, I took them out and I tested right away as soon as I pulled it out, and the one in the cab over, which was easier to get out of the chassis than the Peterbilt, doesn't work. So this is the first one I've seen that's failed out of the box, and I can't see a reason why. So there's probably a bad solder joint on there somewhere. But all is not lost, because I removed this board and reroute the wires so that the board's not on there and the capacitor isn't on there. And I don't know, it could, not sure what's going on. But like I said, I'll troubleshoot that one, and I'll probably do a video removing that board and converting it. So that's the no-go. This one's good, but again, I wouldn't even sell one of these to somebody, because just in shipment, that chassis could, that board, that capacitor could get bumped, and then it don't work, and somebody would just be pissed off. So if you're gonna mess with amp chassis, just understand that you might have to modify that to make it work again if it's not. Because if you put it on a different body on there and you move that capacitor, you could break the contact. They are really quick though. So now I'll talk about the bulbs, G-Bud. And you could try to do it this way. But I'm gonna tell you right now, and that's a thin wire right there. That's a factory wire. That's pretty thin. I got some of these aftermarket ones that I've used on Tycos and all sorts, but the wire is a little thicker. I did do one here. Now this is a Hobby Lobby special right there. Don't remember. Somebody will know what that is. Is that a Roadrunner? Looks like kind of like a Roadrunner. I don't know. It's Plymouth anyway, or Dodge, Mopar. Whoa. Well, I got a rattle in there. I don't know what's rubbing, but it doesn't sound good. But anyway, this one was not lighted as I first got it from Hobby Lobby. But it has a clear bezel in the front, you see, where the headlights are. And there's not really, there is a little indentation where the bulb can go, but it's kind of shallow. Let's see what's going on with this. Grab the deadest battery here or something. A good running chassis at all. All right, I'm going to get some oil in there or something. But anyway, so that's just a standard chassis that had the tabs. I soldered one of these on there because there was plenty of room under the hood, and it's black wires too, but it is not under that pivot point that I was talking about. I didn't bother putting it under there. I didn't need to. It fit. And it's thicker wire, but in this case it doesn't matter because there's enough room under that hood that I could get away with it. I don't know what's going on. I have a lot of luck there. Man. All right, that's back in there. Still sounds rough in the back. I'm gonna have to take that apart. Or at least oil it. But, so that was an extraction chassis that I soldered the bulb on. The one that I'm saying is too thick for the trucks. And then if you look at an LED, it's gonna be even worse. Now, a lot of y'all like LEDs, but once you put that in there, you're not gonna be, it's got, problem with the LED is the length that it extends out. If it was going straight vertical into a roof bezel or something like on a Tyco Jeep, that would probably be okay. But if you look right there on my right hand side, you can see in that heat shrink there's a resistor that limits the current to the LED that will give you your voltage rating, like 12 volts or 18 volts like G-Bud was talking about. Now, I've never used one of these because I didn't read the package when I bought them. They're green. So I got some green LEDs that I've never tried, but I know that this distance that's on here with the heat shrink and the inflexibility of it is going to limit the application, I might have could have got away with it in that Charger or Roadrunner, whichever it is, or Challenger. It's a Mopar. Pretty sure one of y'all will tell me anyway. But this is probably the only road car that I like to run because it's really pretty. It's like almost like the Starsky and Hutch style, but yellow and black. That's a good combination. So what I use, these are the same ones that I used on the truck one that I modified. These are the AFX replacements from Slot Car Central. I think you get 6 for $12, so they're a couple dollars a piece. Yep, you can get a whole bunch of LEDs for a lot cheaper, I'm sure. But physically, these have very thin wires, and they're pretty sturdy. They solder well, and they're at about the exact right length. Once you fish it through there, you might have to trim it first or get a better approximation because you don't want a whole bunch of extra up front. But so like I said, you gotta fish it through. See if I can do it blind. And I just did. So I just shoved that one wire through the empty spot where the armature hooks in. It's right behind the front wheel. Very hard to see. But you see I could push it through. So next I would put that in a third arm with an alligator clip or something, third hand, solder it on. And once I had it soldered, then I would make sure it's in that double clip. You could put a drop of glue on it after that. But once you solder that other one on, because now you got to bend it over, fish it back through that one, and put it on, right? And then once it's done, everything will be oriented behind the axle out of the front of the motor. No wires will make their way back to get rubbed on by the armature. And it should clear about any of the subframes of the bodies you're putting on there. So you do it however you want. But I would not advise trimming any plastic from the underside. You don't want to do anything to the body that get the pain out of the way in the first place when you're, and since you're building the extraction kit, if you do it with an extraction kit, you want to make it easier, you could pull that front axle. They're fairly easy to pull off, and they're that straight pin looking axle that's on there. They're just real easy to bend, so be careful. And once you've got it put together to that point, you can put that light bulb on there if you want. But that's what I would advise. See how thin that is. Now you can just take the bulb. Here's the bad one anyway, so you could just take that bulb that's on there and reuse it. It's probably, like I said, I had to clip a little bit off, so that red wired one, it'd be easier to see. And so you could reuse that bulb if you don't have one of the factory replacement. And like I said, these are aftermarket, but they said they were for AFX lighted chassis. So, and they're really, they've all worked out well for me. Like I said, I must have done at least 4 so far because I only got 2 left. But I keep those for, and I'm gonna do a couple for these 2. What I did notice, one of these tanker, that pin is really kind of tight. Guess it'll wear in a little. But, so there you go. Aftermarket, factory one, how thin the wires are and how much, because once you get it soldered in there, you might not have enough the red wires have more flexibility than the black ones that I was talking about. That's the Auto World factory ones, and a lot of ones that I've seen in original Magnetraction lighted chassis are those same style bulbs, almost identical to with the red wire and the flexibility of it. So there we go. I think that's about it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else, but when I'm doing the work on this broken one tomorrow, trying to figure out what's going on, I might have just figured it out unless I've grabbed the wrong one. No, I grabbed the wrong one. So this is the one that's not working. I'll probably pull them bulbs off, I don't know. But amp chassis, way too quick for any trucks. They were too quick. The first time I ran the yellow one, it went off the track, popped on the ground, and the whole dumpster bed popped off. That's how I know that it's the exact same as one of these without the box. So that's about it. Like I said, y'all got any questions, I'll try to help you out. But I know G-Bud's talking about doing this, swapping it over. And I experienced a lot of headache using one of these thicker bulbs. That was a no-go. And then I tried the factory one. That wouldn't even snap in there because it was just pinching a wire or something. Like I said, it might work under the cab over, but not on that Peterbilt. And when I do them, I'm going to run them just the way I did. You could almost always do it that way, depending on, like I said, there's a whole lot of room up under the hood of that. So it wasn't really an issue. And you can see on the side, there's not much. But if you look at this one from the bottom side, there's barely any space on either side of the truck. So that's why I ran them through the pivot points and pointed towards the front, and it works like a champ. All right, y'all. Take care.